So let's talk about the cholesterol balance test from Boston Heart Diagnostics, a unique specialty labs test that absolutely everybody should take. Stay tuned. So let's just cut straight to it, okay? Peter Attia has all of his personal patients take this blood test, the Boston Heart Diagnostics cholesterol balance test. And if he has all his patients taking it, maybe all of us should be taking it too. So before I get into the test, let's just put up my personal results of this test the first time I did it in 2022, so we can see what the blood test actually measures. As you can see from the screen, it measures 4 different sterol markers. These sterols, as you can see, that's lathosterol, desmosterol, beta-cytosterol, and campesterol. What they do is the first 2 of them, lathosterol and desmosterol, are proxies for measuring cholesterol production in your body, whether your body is overproducing cholesterol or not. And the other 2 markers, beta-cytosterol and campesterol, tell you whether or not you're a normal absorber of cholesterol or an over-absorber or perhaps hyper-absorber of cholesterol. That's what these sterol markers do. They're kind of proxies for how your body produces and or absorbs cholesterol. So these markers are incredibly important for multiple different reasons, and I'm going to make future videos on each and every one of the separate reasons why it's so important to get this test done. But let's just focus on one of them right now, which Attia talks about in his interview with Rhonda Patrick, which is you can use these markers to assess whether or not you might be at increased risk of getting Alzheimer's. A pretty good reason for taking the test, I would argue. And it has to do with the marker called desmosterol. Let's hear what Attia has to say on the subject.
Here's what I would say. This is something that we spend an awful lot of time looking at in our practice. And actually just last week, Tom Dayspring gave us an internal presentation that was so incredible, months in the making, looking at the relationship between statin use and desmosterol levels and dementia risk. Let's back up. Remember how I said there were 2 cholesterol synthesis pathways? Well, in the CNS, really only you have one pathway, and it's the pathway that goes through desmosterol to cholesterol. So desmosterol levels are actually a decent proxy for brain cholesterol synthesis. Lathosterol, which is the penultimate molecule in the other pathway, is more of a proxy for peripheral cholesterol synthesis. They're very difficult to measure in most labs. We use a lab that measures them. So we measure desmosterol and lathosterol in every patient with every blood draw. Unfortunately, this is not standard of care. Most labs can't measure this. Boston Heart does this. So that's why we use Boston Heart. Okay. There are enough data suggesting that if desmosterol levels are very low, the risk of AD does indeed go up, and the risk of dementia beyond AD goes up. This is kind of what I would describe as personalized medicine / medicine 3.0 at its finest, which is you have to treat every patient individually, and we're doubly careful in patients with an ApoE4 gene and or a family history. And in those patients, basically the cutoff we use is 0.8. So if desmosterol falls below 0.8 milligrams per deciliter, we think the risk of dementia is sufficiently high enough that we would abort the use of the statin.
Let's just pause what Peter Attia just said there on his interview with Rhonda Patrick, where he said he'll take people off of a statin if he sees absolute desmosterol go below 0.8, because there is a way to not have to go off of a statin and still bring your desmosterol back to life. I'm going to get into that in future videos. It's not quite as straightforward and as simple as Attia is saying in this interview, so bear that in mind as we move forward.
And you think there is a correlation with ApoE status on that number?
No one has done that study yet.
In your clinical
But in our clinical practice, we just decided, why would we take the risk?
Okay.
But yes, no one has done the study to show are desmosterol levels lower in ApoE4 individuals. That's actually a very testable hypothesis, and it makes a lot of sense. Because we know ApoE is heavily involved in cholesterol activity in the brain.
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't be surprising to me if you put people into 3 buckets: 0 alleles, 1 allele, or 2 E4 alleles, and then just looked at desmosterol levels. Like, that would be a very easy, mindless study to do. Just a survey, like just a quick, is there a correlation, yes or no? So that's one thing I'd love to know the answer to. But even absent that knowledge, our view is there's simply no reason to take the risk. It makes no sense to take unnecessary risks with statins in a higher risk individual when we have these other tools. We have ezetimibe, PCSK9 inhibitors, bempedoic acid. These are unbelievable tools that have no bearing on brain cholesterol synthesis.
But Peter, aren't people that have an ApoE4 allele more likely to be prescribed statins based on their LDL
risk.
particle number by their physician, because the physician doesn't look at their none of this. This isn't personalized. It's not medicine 3.0,
That's right?
Yeah.
So no, it's very frustrating.
So there are other reasons why it's really important to take this cholesterol balance test, aside from tracking for the potential risk of Alzheimer's. Future videos are coming on that. But for now, let's focus on the practicality. Atia's patients get this test. How do we, the ordinary people, get it? Well, basically there's 3 different ways you can get this test. You can self-order it through a third-party agent, and that website is truehealthlabs.com. You can self-order it, and they will arrange for the kit, the box, to be mailed to you, and then you have to get your blood drawn. You can't get it drawn at LabCorp or Quest. You can get an independent mobile phlebotomist to do the blood draw, and you mail it off to Boston Heart Diagnostics. Or you can do what I do, which is to find any lab test now or an independent blood draw company. They operate nationwide. If you have any lab test now near you, you can take the kit that you get to them. They will do the blood draw for free because they have a contract with Boston Heart Diagnostics. They'll send it off to Boston Heart Diagnostics. You'll get the results back on the Truth Health Labs portal for you to look at. So that's one way of self-ordering it. Go to truehealthlabs.com, put in an order for the cholesterol balance test. You get the kit mailed to you, then you have to get the blood drawn, and the results will be on True Health Labs portal within about a week. Second way you can do it is to, again, self-order. That's empowerdx.com. That's another website. As I understand it, it's a little cheaper, but it's a little trickier. You have to do the blood, you draw yourself at home kind of a thing and mail it off. So that's another way. The third way, which is the way I do it, which is to get a prescription for it. For the Boston Heart Diagnostics cholesterol balance test, meaning your doctor can write the prescription if you ask for it. I get this prescription written by my chiropractor. A lot of people don't realize that chiropractors have the legal authority to order whatever blood work they want. And so my chiropractor orders it and gives it to me at wholesale cost. So I end up paying, I think it's like $34 plus $15 shipping for the kit. Same thing, I take it to any lab test now, and then the results end up going to my chiropractor through that portal, and I get it that way. So 3 different mechanisms. TrueHealthLabs.com, probably the most expensive way. EmpowerDX.com, slightly less expensive, but you have to kind of do the blood draw at home. The third way is to get a script for it from your healthcare practitioner. Very important to get this test done. We're going to get into the other reasons why, because you've only gotten 1 on this video. So stay tuned to the channel, click the subscribe button, like, share, and comment. If you've got any questions, be happy to answer them. See you next time.